Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Dual Dialogue podcast, a very wicked episode this week. My name is Cameron. I'm an entertainment journalist, and as you can probably expect, this week's episode is on Wicked for Good. This is the second half of John M. Chu's Wicked duology that started last year. But I'm not alone. You know the drill by now. I don't even know why I keep doing this outside of giving myself an intro I need to remember. But this podcast is not a platform for me to get on a pedestal and talk for an hour about films and cinema. I want to talk with people about films and cinema. And this week is on theme with 90% of the guests I've had so far is a friend of mine from Chapman's Film School, Jadon Sand. Jaden, why don't you say hi to everybody before I get into kind of why I asked you to do this episode with me?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Jadon. I'm a newly minted screenwriter and filmmaker, as well as social media manager and children's book author. But you probably know me best from my work as an actor. I've been in films like The Lego Movie, TV shows like The Affair and Jake and the Neverland Pirates. And recently, I actually did a little bit of voice work for the first Wicked film. So this is very cool to be here for Wicked for Good today.
Yeah. Jaden, I'll let you speak about it because it's not my place to speak about it, but I know Wicked is something that is has been with you since you were a really, really little kid and it means a lot to you. Hence why I even asked you to do Wicked for Good. And when I was blotting out a schedule, I knew that this would be your film. Um, Before we go beat for beat through Wicked for Good, I want to ask you generally. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with Wicked, seeing it as a little kid and why it means so much to you?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. I was probably 3 years old, and my parents were leaving us with our grandparents for the night. And I was like, guys, where are you going? And they were like, oh, well, we're going to see this thing called Wicked. And I was like, ooh, what's that? And they're like, well, it's this Wizard of Oz kind of show, and they're going to be singing and dancing. And I asked, can I come? And they said no, they don't let in children under 5, which is true.
Hmm.
And my mom, though, she made me a deal, so I wouldn't get too upset. She goes, when your birthday rolls around and you turn 5 years old, if Wicked is in town, I'll take you to see it. And I must be the luckiest kid in the world because, sure enough, come May 2008, I think it was, Wicked was in LA. So I got to go with my mom. Still to this day, the best seats I've ever had for a Broadway show ever.
Oh wow.
Um, I don't remember everything from that night, but I have a very vivid image of One Short Day, the
Hmm.
sequence from the first movie, happening, and my mom looking at me like, "Is this so cool?" And me like trying to play it cool and like not embarrass myself, but it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
Hmm.
And then I mean, ever since that day, I've kind of been a Wicked diehard. My other story I'll tell really quick before we get into the movie is,
Please.
um, when I was maybe 10 years old, my family got an iPad, mainly so I could make movies and stuff around the house. But one of the very first things I did was I scrounged YouTube and stole a bunch of clips and made a fan trailer for a Wicked movie.
Oh wow.
Because I was like, I was dying to see this world on screen. Like this
Hmm.
was something that meant so much to me, and I mean, I knew even back then as a kid, like there was so much potential to bring this story to life visually. So I was like, I was ready for this movie. And as you know, having lived in a house with me, I was counting down the days to the first
Hmm.
film,
Yeah.
when it was coming out. It was a big deal.
Yeah, that is true. Like last week's guest, Cassie Jaden, lived in a house with me during college, with the same house that Cassie was in. And I remember walking through the door and hearing about Wicked, seeing the red carpet premieres being live streamed on our
Yeah,
TV. This was an event film. This was a
it was.
capital E event film in our house. And I can see you've got your, is that a Shiz University shirt
Yes,
on?
my shiz shirt. It was a debate
Nice.
today. Should I do the Wicked hoodie or the shiz shirt? But
Oh,
yeah, I thought this would
very
be more
nice.
fun.
Nice. Cool. Well, we'll kind of just jump into Wicked for good for anyone that is uninitiated in the Wicked universe, which I guess 2 years ago I was one of those people.
Yes.
This is the second half of the stage musical, and it's kind of meant to be, I think, Jaden, the way you explained it to me, is Wicked is like what what really happened in The Wizard of Oz, almost like Wizard of Oz is a propaganda production, but Wicked is the behind the scenes true story. Is that right?
That's exactly right. I
Yeah.
mean, this movie is in a separate canon than the MGM Wizard of Oz
Hmm.
movie. Like, because in that movie, everything's just a dream.
Hmm.
But when Wicked was conceived, the idea was sort of like it's the true story of what happened, and the Wizard of Oz is the story the wizard would like you to believe. And
Hmm.
that's kind of how Wicked pitches itself.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So in line with that, the first part of Wicked follows Elphaba Throp, later the Wicked Witch of the West. She goes to Shiz University, meets Glinda, later Glinda the Good Witch. They start off on rocky footing, which is what you might remember from the MGM musical. They're witches on opposite ends of the spectrum, but they end up becoming very, very, very close friends. And Elphaba develops um a desire to help the animals of Oz. She's noticed that animals who can speak and are anthropomorphic to a degree have started to lose those abilities. There's prejudice against them, their rights are being taken away. And when she goes to visit the wizard and, get him to help the animals personally, it's revealed that she's being used as a pawn to kind of be a political arm for him. And when she refuses that, as you can probably imagine anybody would, she becomes what we know as the Wicked Witch of the West in Oz, and she becomes like a martyr that the entire land is against. And that's kind of where this movie picks up. Did I miss anything?
Yeah. You got it just right. I think
Nice.
the only other thing you might want to hit is that there is a time jump
Yes. Is it
between this movie and the last.
is it 1 year or is
Really hard to say because they measure things in clock turns, and
yeah,
we don't actually know what that equates to. But
yeah.
it's been some time,
Hmm. I
certainly.
love that. That you ran right into a note multiple times in this movie. The way they say like "hold on" or "give me a second" is "give me just a clock tick," and I loved
Just a
it.
clock
There's so
tick.
many times they say it. Yeah. So we'll start right away with the opening scene. Before I went into Wicked for Good, I was told that this movie is darker and this movie is sadder, and it's different from kind of the fun whimsy of the first movie. The way I kind of thought of the two films watching Wicked for Good is it reminded me in a very, very weird way. This is not an apt comparison, but it reminded me of the two Dune films, where I felt Dune and Wicked are both just kind of bringing you into this world and introducing you to the characters and how it works, and it's a bit fun. The second films, Dune Part 2 and Wicked for Good, are a bit more story driven and a lot different tonally.
That's
Unlike, oh, go ahead, please.
Well, I say that's an interesting comparison because I find that Doom Part 2 and Wicked for Good were received very differently amongst their
Hmm.
fandoms. Like I feel
Yeah.
like Dune 2 was kind of hailed as um being like a much stronger film than the first, whereas I think Wicked
Hmm.
for Good, while people really enjoyed it, there's definitely not as much universal praise for it. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting dichotomy that these two franchises sort of followed the same path and had different results.
And call me crazy for saying this because I have problems with it. I think kind of the second half, once Dorothy gets involved to a degree, feels, I have some issues there. But I might have liked this film better than the first Wicked. And I don't exactly know why, because I know at least watching its reception and like its opening weekend, that didn't seem to be the overall reception. Um, I think it has something to do with now that this world and these characters have been established, now you can really, for as sad as a story it is, now you can play with their relationships and just see the fun happen and see all of them be together and see how that plays out. Maybe we've gotten all the setup out of the way for now the fun to happen. Maybe.
That's an interesting take. I'll say this: you're not the only one. I went to
Okay.
I've seen this, so I checked my letterbox before I came in because I wanted to have this number correct. I've seen the movie
Mhm.
4 times,
Nice.
which is
Yeah.
too many times, but it's fine.
Hmm.
I and one of those times I went with my family, my whole extended family, my grandparents, my
Hmm.
parents, my brothers, and I'd say about half our group liked this one better than the
Hmm.
first one.
Interesting.
And I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember, Cameron. Back when the first one was coming out, I called this. I called this
You did,
outcome.
yeah.
Uh, we went to the first movie. I was like, I have a feeling Cameron's going to get into the second one more, having not seen the second one, only going off of what I knew from the musical.
Hmm.
But I did. It's so funny that you say that. You bumped when Dorothy comes into the story, because
Hmm.
that plays into a theory I have about the reception of this film.
Ooh. I'm
Um,
I'm curious. Is that something you think we should go into now, or should we save it when we get? It might be a while until we get to Dorothy with the notes I have.
I can cover this. I can cover this briefly now because
Go ahead.
it's not really related to any plot point.
Hmm.
But I was gonna say I've seen a lot of people who have not seen the musical bump when Dorothy and friends start entering the story and kind of feeling like that's where the movie gets a little bit forced and a little bit like it's
Hmm.
trying to kind of handle too many things.
Yeah.
But this is an element from the musical.
Hmm.
Um, and I'll say this: I love this movie, but it took me a minute to love it. The first time I saw it, I was underwhelmed. I'm not gonna say I didn't like it because I did,
Yeah.
and it took me a few more watches to really settle into it. And for me, that's because as such a diehard fan of the musical, I've got a lot of it, locked away in my brain, memorized
Hmm.
since I was a kid, kind of thing.
Yeah.
They change so many elements in the first half of this movie from the stage. Still follows the same basic plot beats, but the way things play out are different.
Hmm.
And it kept kind of taking me out of the movie every time we hit one of those changes. And what my theory is maybe the perfect audience member for this movie is someone who saw the musical maybe once, a few years ago, knows that Dorothy and friends are going to be in it, knows that how they play into the story because they didn't really change with the exception of Cowardly Lion, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
really change how the Wizard of Oz interacts with Wicked all that much.
Hmm.
So knowing that that's coming, I think takes away that feeling that it's being shoved in,
Hmm.
but not knowing it so well that you're caught off guard every time something changes, I think would make the perfect viewing experience of this movie for you, or for an audience member.
Well, it's interesting because I knew Dorothy was going to be involved. I think I was just a little bit surprised at how, and we can maybe this is a discussion when we get to Dorothy's section, but I was a little bit surprised at how much it felt like the film was actively trying to not include that. Like it felt like the film was making active choices to show her and show that side of the story as little as possible. And I get it. That is not the story of Wicked. Wicked is not that story. Wicked is Elphaba and Glinda and what really happened. I understand that is not the focus at all. But it did kind of feel like once Wicked starts running parallel with what we know of as the Wizard of Oz, it moved a lot faster and kind of sped through all the beats we know outside of here's a brief glimpse of Dorothy walking, or here's the side of her face, or here's the shoes, or here's
Yeah,
Toto. It felt very fast. And
that's
certain
fair.
choices when she was included felt like we should show her as little as possible. Maybe that was just almost everybody in the world knows the basic story and characters of Wizard of Oz. Maybe that was the theory. We don't need to set that up at all. Um, but it was interesting how they juggled both halves of this universe now.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely have thoughts on Dorothy, but I'll
sure,
save them. I'll save them for your designated section.
sure. Well, we'll start right from the beginning. I know I said we'd start, I think, 20 minutes ago, and
This is how you and I talk about movies. It's gonna
it's
happen.
gonna be a long one, folks. It's gonna be a long one. If you like Wicked, enjoy it. Sit back and relax. So, from the very first scene, we realize this is a different tone for this film. It opens with the construction of the yellow brick road, and there are kind of like bison rhino hybrid animals that are pulling the bricklaying machine. Some of the Ozians and the Emerald City inhabitants are being abusive towards them, and kind of thinking of them as sort of like cattle animals. And that actually like tugged at my heartstrings a little bit because the implication to me, because we saw this in Wicked Part 1, was that every animal in Oz at one point or another probably could speak. So these were probably once speaking animals that have now been made to do this kind of labor. That really hit me right away. Like that was a really sad like opening, I thought.
Well, there's a line in the opening. One of the guards yells, "No talking."
Hmm.
So that gives you. I mean, it's right there in the
Yeah.
in the text. These are beings of higher consciousness being
Y-
forced into essentially slavery.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I mean every movie starts in media res, like every movie starts in the middle of a story. But I
Talk
love,
about the first Wicked.
yes, yeah,
That's a
right.
crazy opening.
That's a crazy in media res, which kind of comes back at the end. But I love here how we're dropped right into the middle of what this new world is. Now Elphaba is a martyr against Oz. She helps out animals here and there, and so she shows up. She like defeats all the guards, saves the bison, flies away. It really was like, all right, this is the new normal. This is what the new world is. This is her role now. I really enjoyed that.
It's a
And
great scene, and it's totally
yeah.
original to the movie.
Hmm.
It was not in the musical, but it does such a good job of, I think, setting up the conflict for those who might have missed the first movie or don't remember it super well.
Hmm.
It gets you emotionally invested very quickly.
Hmm.
And when that "No One Mourns the Wicked" instrumental comes in as
Yeah.
she flies in, dude, I felt it. I felt it in the theater. It was exciting. My theater
Hmm.
cheered the
Yeah.
first time.
Did
It
you
was
have like
cool.
a packed house, like a packed audience?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to see this movie for the first time at an early screening
Oh,
for the
nice.
SAG Awards,
Hmm.
now the Actor Awards,
Hmm.
and it was packed. It was like full house. No one had seen the movie yet. Like it was
Wow.
super fresh, so it was
Hmm.
really exciting, fun room to be in for my first
Hmm.
screening.
That's awesome. That's super
Yeah,
cool. I talked a bit about how because this world feels already set up, it's easier to kind of sink in and enjoy from my perspective. And a lot of that was because this opening where we see both Elphaba and Glinda's new lives kind of felt like it just immediately drops you into this new world. Glinda, we should say, oh, by the way, I completely spaced over this. Elphaba is played by Cynthia Erivo and Glinda is played by Ariana Grande. I I hope this doesn't sound insulting. I noticed it more in this film how beautiful their voices are. Like their
so
voices are
good.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Like there were certain, the way I'm affected by music is when certain notes or lines kind of like tickle my brain. And there are so many moments where both of them did that in this film where I was like, oh, I love that that's how you chose to say that line or that's how you chose to sing that word. Like it was,
Oh yeah, the
yeah.
Cynthia especially. They're both stunning singers, and this is just more evidence that musicals should always cast singers
Hmm.
as their leads. But I would say Cynthia, especially her musicality, like what you're saying, how she
Hmm.
chooses to hit certain notes, is just so beautiful. It's stunning. They've
Hmm.
got stunning voices.
Yeah. So Galinda has been set up as this also as a political pawn. She's a little bit more, well, she is more okay with it. Not in that she supports all the like villainous overtones that I don't think she really knows about all of them, but she's being set up as the good versus the wicked. She and Elphaba have literally been set up by the city as political opponents. There's banners that show both of them against each other. Later on in the film, when she's getting married, they've set up pink flowers everywhere. Like she is being used as the face of this city and of this land. Um, and I really enjoyed the little sequence where Madame Morrible, played by Michelle Yeoh, shows her bubble. And it's in the original MGM musical, it's a literal bubble that Glinda conjures that she flies around in. In Wicked, the explanation is that it's sort of a floating base that has an internal mechanism that creates a bubble when she steps on a button with her foot. The way Madame Morrible explains it, which I thought was really interesting, was this bubble will give the people hope because it might fool them into thinking that Glinda has her own magic, like Elphaba can perform magic and fly. The way Madame Morrible explains it is you don't have magical powers, but the people won't know that you're just stepping on a button and these gears are creating a bubble. They'll think it's you and you're flying around of your own accord. I thought that was a really clever. Like I was into the politics of this movie. That's the thing. Like I was into the two of them kind of being pitted against each other and what the background intentions are.
Things get
So
juicy. They really do.
yeah.
Bubble scene, another new scene for the movie.
Yeah.
That I love it when I think my favorite. It's a great scene. I think my stand up for that scene is when Michelle said, or Madame Morrible says that the wizard believes that our good witch should also be airborne.
Hmm.
And I think that that sentence, like, so simply kind of encapsulates how they're posturing Glinda to the public.
Hmm.
I think it's a great way to set that up.
In addition to kind of seeing Glinda in her new role and seeing Elphaba in her new role, I really enjoyed how every character is introduced as like this is what they're up to now. Like especially Fiero, the way you see the Aussian guard, salute Glenda, and right at the front is Fiero. It kind of checked the box in my head, like, okay, that's what he's up to. Like it's really cool. I liked seeing all of them in their new roles.
It is neat, and
Yeah.
I I'm a sucker for Fierro in the captain of the guard position in this film. I feel like it gives him so much more dramatic tension that he didn't have in the first film. Like he's great in the first movie, but so much of his arc is, oh, does he like Alphaba or does he like Glinda? And I feel like in this movie it very much becomes his loyalty to the two of them.
Hmm.
Because he cares about both of them, and I think by putting him in the captain of the guard role, we start to see how he's sort of what it would be like if, and hear me out, like let me know if this rings true for you, but sort of like what it would be like if Elphaba had decided to go with the wizard, sort of trying to make that change from
Mm.
within the system. Fierro is always imploring Glinda to change this or that, and when you were saying that Glinda kind of enjoys this or is okay with everything that's happening, it reminded me of that moment during Thank Goodness, where he kind of pulls her aside and she asks him, "Well, who could resist this?" And he goes, "You know who could, and who has."
Hmm.
And I have to find her. Like it's such a good moment for him and for her. So yeah, like you said, it's really interesting places everyone starts this film.
Yeah, well, that's part of the fun I think of this movie is as heavy as it is seeing how all these characters are being used and kind of know it, but they're not entirely sure, how to get around it. Like Fiero is captain of the guard. So every time Elphaba's around, I'm being called the hunter, and I have to act like I want to capture her. Or Glinda is okay with, and we'll get into it in a second. Glinda's okay with acting magical and attention having, but if she were to know about the animal cruelty and ulterior motives, she doesn't support that, but she might support this. And so how do you balance being used as a pawn with actually wanting peace of Oz?
On
Um,
Fierro hunting Elphaba, I have
yeah,
to ask:
yes.
do you think he saw her in the forest when the guards were chasing her down after Thank Goodness? I'm still 50-50 on it. I don't know.
I'm gonna choose to believe yes because in the background I noticed her or someone that looked like a person like a witch's costume in the woods, and I thought to myself, I bet Fiero knows she's back there, but he's gonna act like she's not there and walks away. So in watching the scene, did I clock like, oh yeah, Fiero looked at her right there, so he knows? No, but my interpretation was he probably can glance out of his peripheral and go, oh, she's back there, or she's probably hiding back there. I'm gonna leave. My
I
guess
think
is
so too.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that the movie doesn't spell it out for you. That it lets you
Yeah.
sort of
Hmm.
guess a little. Because even Alphaba's guessing. She has that moment after where she says, "Even you, Fiero," because she
Yeah.
thinks he's left her.
That moment is huge. There's so many moments. This I'll instead of doing it as a beat, I'll kind of just say generally. I've spoken about how I love how this movie is all about y- you know you see the character relationships now that we've had the setup. Now it's how everyone interplays with each other. And seeing this group of friends, I mean, every time there was a problem between one and the other, I thought back to that flashback of all of them under the tree together every single time. And it really tugged at my heartstrings that this whole story is basically at its core, it's a story about a friend group that is just completely broken up.
Yeah,
And every time there was an ex of Fiero leaving Linda, or a little less so, but Bach wanting to leave Nessarose and seeing Nessarose's dependence on him, and it was very interesting seeing moments where characters in the friend group betrayed another friend and they thought it was genuine. Like the line you just said about Elphaba when he first has the his like revolver pointed at her and she thinks he is actually betraying her, she's heartbroken. And that really tugged at my heartstrings. And when the guards later take Fiora away to hang in the scarecrow field and Glinda's crying because she's kind of accepted, okay, he's not devoted to me, he's devoted to Elphaba. She's accepted that, but she's realizing
she
like,
still cares about him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
my favorite moment along these lines is when Bach comes in while Elphaba's doing the magic for Nessa, and he first sees her, and he
Mhm.
jumps back. He's like, "Stay back!" And Elphaba's like,
Yes.
"Buck, it's just me. It's Elphaba." That's like that scene is such a good distinction of the Elphaba that he knew at school versus the Elphaba that he thinks he knows now.
Yeah.
Um, and the other moment that gets me, and this is something when I came on today, I knew I wanted to mention this scene. It
Please.
is literally a 3 second shot in this film.
Hmm.
But it's towards the very end of the movie. I'm going out of order.
So go ahead.
March of the Witch Hunters. This
Hmm.
crazy, frenzy of a mob going
That's a
after
crazy
Elphaba.
scene. Yeah.
It's a crazy scene, and there's
Hmm.
so many good moments. Bach looking up at Glinda and like no emotion. It's so good. But the moment that gets me, this is the moment of the movie that like literally I felt the movie the most. I
Hmm.
felt the horror of what was happening. Was the shot of Fanny and Shen Shen, Bo and Yang, and
Hmm.
crap, I'm blanking on her name. It's not Marissa Bodie because it's an M name.
Oh.
Fanny and Shen Shen, Glinda's
Hmm.
friends from school.
Hmm.
Um, Both fantastic.
Hmm.
But they're horrified.
Yeah.
They cover their mouths and they're like in shock, like watching the mob go through Emerald City. And something about seeing those two characters from school, who were the silly ones,
Hmm.
be just so in horror of what's happening in front of them, that really hit me. Like watching the movie, I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about March of the Witch Hunters. It's that scene is very, very tonally different from what we know of the Wizard of Oz, and we'll get into that a bit. We're getting close to kind of where the Wizard of Oz, the first intersection point is, I think. So where Glinda is at, and we just talked about it a little bit, kind of how I don't want to reduce her arc to being she craves attention because I don't think it's just that, but there's a flashback scene to ha her having a birthday party when she's a little kid and how she can't perform magic. And I think you can make the argument of why is this scene here? Why are we flashbacking to when she's a little kid? But it sets up her arc of she she wants to be, I don't know if
Magical.
important is the right word or just magical. She wants to be magical. She wants the attention on her in regards to I can do this, I can do that, I can do this, I can do that. And I think that sets her up to being, like we talked about, slightly okay with being used as a figurehead for the city. Again, she's not a bad person. She's not, I don't think she knows about the true horrors of what's going on. But I think that flashback is a smart way of showing why she's okay with some of Madame Morrible's and the wizard's actions.
And I have a thought on this that
Please.
literally just hadn't thought of this before. This is live, unfiltered
Oh, wow.
podcast magic.
Wow.
Um, this you talking about Glinda wanting to be magical and that setting up kind of why she's okay with this. I think this sets up so much more for her character because I feel like this is one of the few movies where a character, your main character, gets what they want
Mm.
at the end of the story.
Hmm.
Sometimes in movie structure, you get it at the middle and it turns out to be not what you wanted, and then you
Hmm.
have to come to terms with what's new. And for Glinda, she does get to be magical. At the end of the movie, the
Hmm.
Grimoire opens for her.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what that means in this context is that Glinda is magical and she gets to be magical, but not when she's doing it for the attention or because she wants to be
Yeah.
important, but when she decides to do it for good,
Hmm.
to call in the title of the film,
Yeah.
that's when kind of that power is granted to her. So I think to your point, yes, she wants to be magical for the attention, to be loved, to be seen, but she gets to be magical when she's doing it out of the true goodness of her heart.
Yeah, I think it's and maybe I'm botching screenwriting rules and mixing them up, but isn't there a character cannot get, you can't go about your goal the wrong way. You're going about it the wrong way. You got to wait till you can get it the right way. And her,
Yeah.
like you just said, her wrong way is I want to be magical and get attention from that and feel important. But you can only truly have those powers once you revoke your kind of glamorous, your popular status. See what I did there? Oh.
Yeah, I see what you did
and
there.
and yeah, you can only choose once you choose the side of good, then you'll kind of be given what you wanted.
Yeah.
I also like how Firo is not truly happy with Glinda, and you see that right from the beginning. They Glinda and Firo and Madame Morrible visit Munchkinland, and
Yes.
kind of in line with being used as a pawn, Madame Morrible announces they're going to be married, and Glinda is happy with that. Fierro, not as much, not in like a mean way, but he's kind of put aback by that.
He says,
But
and if it'll make you happy, of course I'll marry you.
yeah,
And she goes, but it'll make you happy too, right? And he's like, you know me,
hmm
I'm always happy, which is
yeah,
just such a devastating moment. My first
right,
time I saw that movie, people in the audience went, ooh, when that happened, because
yeah.
it's
Be
crazy.
I mean, the entire marriage is being used as just a political move, and they're just in the moment realizing it real time. Okay, this is happening. All right,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love that song, by the way. I have to put that out there.
please.
Thank goodness, one of my favorite songs from the musical. So cool to see it on screen for the first time.
Hmm
And Ariana is spectacular in
Yeah.
that moment as well.
So we talked a bit about what Glinda and Fierro have been up to. Elphaba we talked about is occasionally like helping out different animal causes. And one day when she's flying over the woods, she sees a bunch of animals have ripped up a section of the yellow brick road and are walking into a tunnel underneath it. And she flies down there, and Dulcibert, who was her like nurse when she was delivered as a baby, is leaving. And Elphaba talks to the animals about kind of like, what are you doing? You're not going to stay and fight for your home and help me? And they're essentially say no. And Elphaba has a song relating to No Place Like Home. And I found it really interesting the way they use it. Like Dorothy uses, the iconic phrase "No place like home" in the original Wizard of Oz. Dorothy uses that as kind of like a spell to send her back to Kansas. I found it really interesting the way they parallel it here. Dorothy uses "No place like home" as a phrase of comfort. Elphaba uses it, to call Oz a place of comfort, and because it's a place of comfort, they must fight for it. It's really
Yeah,
interesting.
it's kind of
Um,
her battle cry
yeah.
almost.
hmm
I like that. So that's a new song. That's
Oh wow.
one of the two that was added to the film.
hmm
Um, and I have to say, my thoughts on the new songs are pretty funny, actually. I like the scene they built around No Place Like Home a lot. The song, a little mixed on.
hmm
Whereas with Ariana's new song, Girl in the Bubble, I love the song, but the scene placement I'm a little mixed on. But for this scene, I was watching this movie. I was just so struck by how politically relevant kind of that moment was, talking about patriotism in the face of maybe a government that you don't fully support. And I know that that's where a lot of modern Americans are these days, and I think that that song's definitely going to speak to sort of that side of things. And I think it's great. I think because the original Wicked was very political. It made fun of its current regime at that time. There's a line in the original show. I'm kicking myself because I don't remember who was in office in 2003. Um, but I but they had a saying, I suppose, about being an unelected official, which they parroted in Wicked the musical, and it didn't make it into the film. Obviously, it's kind of a joke from a bygone era. But back in the day, Nesserez had a line. She goes, "I can't harbor a fugitive. I'm an unelected official," and they say it used to stop the show
Hmm.
back in the day because people were cheering and laughing so much that they had to kind of put it on pause after that was said.
Huh.
So I think bringing this version of Wicked for Good, of the second half of Wicked, into today's politics was brilliant, and I think it goes so well with the animal rights and all these other kind of elements of this film.
I'm very curious, and if this part of the conversation is like, you can't take that opinion, like I'll cut it out, but like I'm very curious what the right call in this situation is. Like, what side do you think you should take? Is the right call fighting with Elphaba? Or, I mean, the animals are operating out of a place of fear. They're not saying they don't care. It's more, times are so horrible, we want to get away and keep ourselves safe first. Is that the
Yep.
right call? Like, should you prioritize safety first? Like, it is to me, that scene was a balancing act of what's the right call here. I don't really know. I don't really know.
And I think the scene brilliantly shows both sides and
hmm
makes a good case for both sides. I know if I were in Oz, I would probably be one of the animals leaving under the
hmm
yellow brick road. I wouldn't if I were an animal in Oz.
Yeah.
I don't have the ability or nerve to stay and fight alongside Alphaba. But what that scene does as well is it sows the seeds for the Flying Monkeys' ultimate
hmm
kind of switch up on the wizard to
Yeah.
join Alphaba and fight alongside her. They overhear her kind of conversation with the other animals. So
hmm
I think that you get to see both sides in that scene, and I think both sides are valid. I don't think there's a right answer there.
Hmm. Yeah, and initially I thought that Chistery and the other monkeys watching Elphaba was meant to be the reason he calls the monkeys off is because he's seeing that everyone's turning on Elphaba, or he's seeing that her case isn't getting them to stay, so he's okay with it. He's against her. But now, as you illustrated, I realized he was actually supporting her the whole time, and that was kind of
Yeah,
the
I mean
listening moment.
he kind of holds him back when I think it's the Cowardly Lion calls out. They say she's the one who gave the monkeys their wings and gave the wizard his spies, and
Yeah.
Elphaba fully goes, yes, I cast that spell.
Hmm.
And that's something I have to live with. It is not something I am proud of. I feel
Hmm.
awful. If I could undo it, I would. And I think that that's when the monkeys, because the monkeys, you'll remember in the first movie, Morrible goes out and she goes dun dun listen, which is
Hmm.
Ariana and Cynthia's favorite scene in that movie. I think it's so
Yeah.
funny. And she tells them, she's like, the witch did this to you. You
Hmm.
have to capture her because she's the one who ruined your lives. So I
Hmm.
think for the monkeys, for the first time, to be hearing her express remorse for what she did, like that is kind of an impactful moment for them because it means
Hmm.
they've been lied to as much as everyone else has by
Hmm.
the wizard and Madame Morrible.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, so we you touched on it a little bit just a minute ago, but what interrupts this is the Cowardly Lion, voiced by Coleman Domingo, which came out of nowhere. I had no
Crazy
idea
pull.
he was involved until like 1 week before the film. He was on one of the carpets talking about it. Like that was
Yeah.
crazy. And he tells the animals, like, like you said, the monkeys have wings because of her. I'm cowardly because of her. She saved me. I've never fought for myself. And so I'm cowardly and scared now because of her. I was really curious as to why he would have that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you have thoughts on that? Like, I don't know why he
You know,
would be against Elphaba for being saved from,
it's
like,
it's a
yeah.
great question, and it's something that Wicked the musical struggles with too, because this scene isn't in the musical.
Hmm.
All you get in the musical about the lion is that line in March of the Witch Hunters where he goes, "And the lion also has a grievance to repay."
Hmm.
That bit. So that was all we had for context previously. So
Hmm.
this scene kind of adds even a little more to that and acts as a bit of a band aid for that line. But to answer your question, I don't know. I mean, I have to assume that he had a hard life after being let loose in the forest from, like you said, the cage was the only home he'd ever known. And so I
Hmm.
imagine it's sort of like when you, like, how they say, like, you can take a spider out of your house, but it'll probably die because it's not used to being in the wild.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
it's very possible that this cowardly lion has gone through some trauma since being released into the woods of Oz.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll say this: there are so many books in the Wicked series. For those who don't know, Wicked the musical was based on a series of books,
Hmm.
which itself was based on a series of books. Wicked is like the most adapted, like crazy
Hmm.
family tree you could
Chain
ever
of,
find.
yeah.
But one of those books, which I have not read, but I've seen a lot of people saying that if they were going to make another Wicked movie, it would be one they'd want to adapt. Is called A Lion Among Men, and it follows the Cowardly Lion kind of
Hmm.
during this period. So I imagine the answers are out there, but I do not have them.
So we cut now to seeing where Nessa Rose and Bach are. Elphaba's sister and Bach, who initially liked Glinda, ended up dancing with Nessa Rose and has become a good friend to her. And as we see, Nessa Rose has hung on to him a little too tightly and is basically using him, preventing him from leaving. She's really cruel to him. There's a really
Mm.
hard scene where he tries to leave and he finds out that she has just passed a decree that prevents Munchkins from leaving Munchkin Land. So he's watching families get turned away from the train. It's really hard to watch.
It's a tough scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Elphaba, arrives and says she wants to do something good for Nessa Rose. And so she casts a spell. Nessa Rose is paraplegic, so she's in a wheelchair. She casts a spell that lifts her up and doesn't give her like flight powers, but makes her kind of levitate. And you brought up a line earlier when Bach comes back and realizes this. Bach, by the way, has seen a newspaper advertising that Fiyero and Glenda are going to get married. He wants to run away and plead his case to Glenda as being the man for her.
Fuck.
Um,
Say what you will about Bach and Nessa. At least they have yearning after someone that they can never possibly have in common.
there were two lines in this sequence that really stood out to me. One is what you already brought up when Bach walks in, sees Elphaba, freaks out, and Elphaba says, "It's just me. I'm not going to hurt you." That really stood out to me.
It's good.
The other one right before that is Elphaba has come to Nessarose and led with, "I want to give do something good for you," and Bach calls
Well,
her. Oh,
I,
go ahead.
I want to caveat that briefly
Oh,
with
please.
Elphaba actually comes for help.
Oh,
After the
yeah, that's right.
animals abandon her, it's a deleted scene, and it's sad because movie just came out on digital. We have
Yeah.
access now to these cut moments.
Hmm.
And there was a reprise of No Place Like Home where Elphaba kind of establishes that she never thought she'd go back to her home, but she's going to because she has nowhere else to go. She has no one
Hmm.
else to ask for help. And when she arrives, Nessa is kind of pissed at her
Hmm.
for not coming home sooner and not being there for her. Nessa, listen, she's such a interesting character, um, but it's only after Elphaba kind of realizes that Nessa. So I have to. There's so much complexity here because this scene is deeply changed from the
Yeah.
musical.
Take it over, please.
It's kind of an infamous moment in the musical for being a bit of an ableist view on the story. That
Hmm.
in this scene, because in the original Wicked, Nessa is much less independent than she is in Wicked. You know, that whole thing where she doesn't want Elphaba to help her. So they had to kind of shift the scene a little for
Hmm.
Nessa to renege on that and be like, no, now I do want your help. But in the musical, Elphaba gives Nessa the power to walk
Hmm.
with her shoes, and and that's kind of viewed as like, well, that makes everything better, which is obviously a little
Hmm.
problematic.
Hmm.
But this is a new opening to the song then that Nessa sings about being at the Ozdust with everybody. And what I liked about that new opening was it puts into perspective that thing you were talking about of this is a friend group that's been torn apart by this world. Because
Hmm.
I think that Nessa more than any of them wants to go back to that time. I think
Yeah.
everyone else wants to find a way forward, and like figure out their place as a friend group in this new world.
Hmm.
But Nessa is just longing for the way things were, which
Yeah.
I think is such a thing. And that's when Elphaba decides to use her powers to help Nessa.
Yeah.
I think that's an important distinction.
And I like that Nessa seems to think that part of that spell is Bach calling her Nessa now because
Yeah,
Bach doesn't want to stay with her anymore. She just before this, all she said is, "I want you to call me Nessa again, like you used to, like at the Ozdust." And so when he does, the exact word she says the alphabet is, "He called me Nessa, it's working." And like it really hit me is because we know that's not part of the spell, but seeing
yeah,
her just desperately want that so badly to where she's kind of deluded in thinking it's truthful was it was sad. It was really
it's
sad.
heartbreaking. Yeah,
Yeah. Let
and
me
then
see.
she's driven to do something real bad.
Then she's driven to do something real bad. So Nessa goes over to the Grimmery and starts putting a spell on Bach because she essentially wants, she says, I think she says, "I want his heart," as in like, is it something along those lines?
So yeah, so you've hit on. I know we keep things positive on the show. You've hit on one of the
No, let's do
changes
it.
I'm not a huge fan of
Yeah.
from the movie, which is in the musical. This is a very natural moment. It's all
Hmm.
sung through. So a lot
Yeah.
of the dialogue she has in this moment, like you'll lose your heart to me, I tell you, if I have to magic spell you. That's sung in the musical, and she speaks it in the
Hmm.
movie, and that definitely rubbed me the wrong way.
Hmm.
But yes, she basically says there must be a spell in here to capture your heart. And I'm not a huge fan of that moment in the original script for the movie because we have access to that now as well.
Hmm.
It's there must be a love spell in here somewhere, which I think is a more elegant sort of way to get there. But speaking as someone who had never seen Wicked, I'm
Yeah.
really curious to get your thoughts because when she said that line, there must be a spell to capture your heart. I was like, oh man, everyone here is gonna figure out what happens next. Like
Hmm.
everyone, when they hear that line, they're gonna know. Did you know? Like, did you know what was happening, or
I,
did it take getting to the reveal?
I I figured it was probably gonna be it was gonna end with Bach turning into the Tin Man because
Mm.
and something I liked is Bach is dressed in like all silver clothing in all the
Yeah,
scenes before that. In fact, I think the like tunic he's wearing, it has like buttons on it that look exactly like the tin like cylinder versions in the Tin Man. Um, so I figured it had to do with that. What I didn't expect was that when his heart is shrinking, his heart is actually literally shrinking inside his body. That I thought it was like a metaphor for I thought it was gonna be something like the Grinch, where he just doesn't have the capacity for love,
No, that
or
dude has
he's
no heart.
like he literally is in pain because his organ is changing.
It's
Like
shrinking. Which
yeah,
can I just say, Ethan Slater, again, say what you
hmm
will, his performance in that scene is spectacular.
yeah,
Like as an actor as well, I can't imagine trying to find a way to make that look and feel so natural, but he
hmm
does. You really feel like
yeah,
that panic and that pain in him
hmm
in that moment. It's great. It's a great
yeah.
performance.
That really shocked me when when you realize his heart is literally shrinking. Because I hate stuff where like pain is implied but not seen. So that really
Yeah.
got me. Yeah. So Elphaba sends Nessarose out of the room, and I should mention I completely spaced on saying who plays Nessarose. I always say the actors. It is
Marissa Bodie.
Marissa Bodie. That's right. Yeah, she does a good job too with
Yes.
kind of walking the line between like you don't like her because of what she does, but also you feel really like you this whole situation is really sad.
I think that's what I meant when I was trying to say that when I said this is an interesting character because
Yeah.
she does so many things wrong, but
Mhm.
in the end she's as tragic as the rest of them, and she's a victim of Glinda. But I'll get
Mhm.
to that when you're done with the scene because it's cool.
So Elphaba sends her out of the room and starts reading from the Grimoire. We stay with Nessa, who finishes kind of the song. We get brief glimpses of Bach's hands turning into silver and, his clothes like becoming, grabbing tin and a pot falling on his head and everything. And I just as shocking as this sequence was Elphaba's reaction after the fact. Like she just
Yeah.
walks out of the room. Um, she's very cold talking to Nessa, and I think what she says verbatim, Nessa asks something like, "How is his heart?" or "Did you fix his heart?" And she says, "He won't be needing one anymore."
Mm.
I was just because we all know what has happened to Bach, I found Elphaba's reaction really interesting. Like she seemed a little cold, not like she doesn't care, but just kind of like she's shocked and wants to just get out of it. And I thought if you just turn somebody into a tin man, I feel like the reaction would be a bit different, you know? Like it was
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah.
I never thought about that because that's a moment ripped directly from the musical, almost word
Mhm.
for word.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot going on in Elphaba's head, right?
hmm
She's upset with Nessa Rose. She's shocked at what she's done, but really at that point, her mind's kind of already on Fiero.
Yeah.
Like
She's
she's
already over
like,
it.
"Peace out. I'm going to Emerald City,"
hmm
which is so funny to me. Because you make a good point. I feel like the Elphaba we know should be a little more shaken up by what she's had to do to her former friend, and maybe that just says something about what this world has done to Elphaba at this point. Like she's
hmm
so far removed from kind of what she's doing, and maybe it's because he would have died if she hadn't.
hmm
Maybe that's part of it too. Um, but I don't know. It's you raise a good point. I do think that is a bit of an underreaction
hmm
in retrospect.
Yeah. Well, anyways, she leaves, and we get our first glimpses of Bach as the Tin Man that we know from the original story. I understand that they're different characters, like to a degree, Fierro knows what's really going on better than almost anybody save for Glinda. So, well, actually, no, more than Glinda because of the ending. So he knows he's probably okay with being turned into, well, we'll get to that.
We'll get there.
But Bach as the Tin Man, I understand you've been turned into a Tin Man. This is a horrible fate. And Elphaba even says it,
Yeah.
Grimoire spells cannot be reversed. So what happens, happens. Like, I get it. But I was shocked at how different he is from the Tin Man we know. I actually saw before I saw the film, so I knew a little bit going in. I saw a few joke TikToks of people saying this and this are the same character, and it's the original
Yeah.
Tin Man in the 30s movie doing in his song about being made of tin when he leans back and forth and he's playing with Toto. Hard cut with him during March of the Witch Hunters screaming for blood.
He's
Like,
a killer. Yeah.
yeah, he is a completely different character.
Yes,
And
he is.
again, I understand his anger, but I also was really shocked by his anger and
Yeah.
just how he has such a sad story. He and Nessa have such sad stories as the film continues. They're the two that, yes, Glinda has an extremely sad story as well, but there is no catharsis for them. There is nothing saving them at the end of this story.
Nothing ends well for either of them.
Yeah.
And it's all Glinda's fault because if Glinda had not asked Bach to ask Nessa out so that she could go to the Ozdas with Fiero,
Hmm.
literally none of this would have happened to the
Yeah.
two of them. Which, well, Nessa might have still met her same fate, but we'll get to that
Hmm.
because I imagine Elphaba would have walked the same path, and therefore um, the same things would have happened. But it's true. It's those two are such a tragic pair. And to your point about Tin Man being a
Hmm.
different character,
Yeah.
I do think you've hit maybe 30% of why Dorothy and friends are the way they are in this film.
Okay.
Is because if we spend too much time with them, we do have to start addressing some of these things.
Yeah.
And I think that the movie just wanted to stay out of the weeds on that, especially re Tin Man's relationship with a certain man made of straw,
Yes.
um, which is so
Yeah.
interesting.
We'll get into that because we're just about to the halfway point, which is where Dorothy kind of starts showing
Drops
up.
in.
And yeah, and I actually think, well, I'll get into that.